Hi, this is Jaya. Now we shall see the summary of Kubla Khan by Coleridge. Come, let's go to the poem. Before we actually go into the poem, we have to know certain details about this because this is one of the most important poems in English literature, and it is also one of the poems which made Coleridge as a very famous English poet. And the details are this, that he actually wrote Kubla Khan in 1798, but he published only in, but this poem got published only in 1816, and he issued it as a pamphlet which also had Christabel and the Pains of Sleep. Actually, the other poems which are very famous poems by Coleridge are The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Christabel, and we have to know more about this. Coleridge himself has given a subtitle to this poem saying that this is a vision of a fragment of his dream. Fragment means a small piece, a part. So he says that he had a dream, and in that dream also this poem is only a part. And actually one day he was having opium. Coleridge used to take opium, and after taking opium he went to sleep. But before taking this opium he was reading a book written by Purchas, in which he was reading about a king called Kubla Khan. And this Kubla Khan poem is actually a supernatural poem because there are so many supernatural elements in this poem. And this poem begins with the description of Kubla Khan's kingdom, and it is said to be taking place in a place called Xanadu. It is actually a mythical city because there is no real Xanadu in the world. But here Kubla Khan's kingdom is said to be Xanadu, and he is also a very powerful ruler, and he orders to build a pleasure dome for his palace. And where is this palace? It's near the sacred river Alph. Actually it is Alph, Alph. And this river passes through measureless caves. Measureless caves means men have not gone to those caves earlier, and there are many gardens and streams all around this palace, and there is also garden. When we are reading the poem, we will go line by line. And there are garden and forest all around it, and it is full of greenery, and it's also said that this place is visited by fairies and demons. And here he says that he is also seen a woman who is sitting under a waning moon, that is a decreasing moon, and singing a sad song for her demon lover. And he also says that when the river is flowing, suddenly it will spring up as a fountain violently, and when it is springing up, it will even throw huge rocks which will fall in all the direction. And this he says this river runs through the forest and goes into the caves and other places, and finally it enters into the ocean. And when it is entering, he says that Kubla Khan was able to hear his ancestors' voice, which were warning him of an approaching war and the danger which he is going to face. And as he is mentioning this, suddenly Coleridge goes into describing the pleasure tomb, and he says how the shadow of this tomb is shown in the waves, and when it is shown in the waves, the sound of the waves and the sound coming from the fountain and the sound coming from the caves all give him a different type of pleasure which cannot be described. And at the same time he creates a mystical element in the poem by describing the doom as bright as sunlight and the caves as ice. This is a very rare scene because they are just close by, and one place where it is hot and the other place being cold just next to it is really mythical. And he also suddenly goes to another vision where he says once upon a time he saw an Abyssinian maid playing a music on her dulcimer, and he says I really hope to bring back that song and the symphony, the music, because if he is able to bring back the same song, then he can create a doom in the air like how Kubla Khan created a pleasure doom for his palace. And by this he will be able to inspire people to come around him, and they will close their eyes in divine fear because they will think that the poet has drunk the honeydew and the milk of paradise. And actually speaking, Coleridge has mentioned that in his dream itself he started composing this poem, and originally he composed to nearly 200 to 300 lines, but and when he got up also he remembered the poem very well and eagerly started writing down. But when he was writing his 54th line, a person came and interrupted him, and they were delayed by nearly 1 hour, and when he came back he was not able to write the poem because he forgot the poem which was in his dream. So he leaves the poem there, and that is why he says this poem is only a fragment, it is only a piece of a part of my dream. And since it's a dream, you cannot expect any story, or you cannot expect any a continuous flow of thought or any morals or allegory or symbolism. It is only his dream, what he saw he is telling here. Come, we'll go into the poem now. Kubla Khan, and Kubla Khan's poem's subtitle is Or a Vision in a Dream, a Fragment. So Coleridge himself says it's a dream, it's a vision in a dream, what he saw in the dream, and it is only the fragment, it's only part of the dream, not the full dream which he had. And he starts the poem like this: in Xanadu. Xanadu is a place, it's an imaginary place by Coleridge. Did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree. So he says the King Kubla Khan ordered to build a pleasure dome, and he says that this Kubla Khan is actually the grandson of the great Mughal conqueror Genghis Khan. And then he continues, he says, where as the sacred river ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. So he says that near that pleasure palace, river Alf was running, and he says this river Alf is a sacred river, meaning it can be from flowing from the heavens. And he says that this runs through caverns. Caverns means caves, measureless to man, meaning that no man has ever gone to these caves. So these caves were not visited by anyone at all. And then this river runs down to a sunless sea. Imagine, he's saying it is then going and joining a sea where sunlight has never shown its face to it. That is, the sea has not seen sun at all. So this itself will create, the beginning itself he is creating a mystical element here. And then he says, now he is describing the palace. So twice 5 miles of fertile ground. So this palace is situated in twice 5 means 10 miles fertile ground, with walls and towers were girdled around. You know, any palace will be surrounded by walls and towers. The same way this palace is also in between, and it is surrounded. Girdled means surrounded by walls and towers. And they were gardens bright with sinuous rills. And he's saying it was full of garden. The palace is surrounded by a beautiful garden where blossomed many an incense bearing tree. Incense means nice fragrance, that is very good smell. And in this garden there were trees which were blooming with flowers which gave very sweet smell. And here were forest ancient as the hills, and near the palace they were forest, and this forest is a very ancient forest. He says it must be as old as the hills, because we know thousands and thousands of years will take for a hill to come up. And so he says these forests are also ancient like the hills, enfolding sunny spots of greenery. And he says this forest is full of green. There are so many trees, and all the trees are having evergreen leaves. And then afterwards he goes to the next lines. He says, but oh, the deep romantic chasm which slanted down the green hill athwart a cedarn cover. So he says that is a deep romantic chasm. Means what means here he is saying that as the river is flowing very fast, it will go more and more deep into the ground. So here he says this river is flowing and it has formed a deep romantic chasm, a beautiful chasm which is near the green hill. And this hill is filled with cedarn trees. So this hill is not barren, it is not empty. It has trees, and that also cedarn trees there. And between this hill, the river is going like a valley, and it has cut down the ground in a very deep chasm. And he calls it a savage place, meaning it has not seen the civilization yet. It is like ancient place, as holy and enchanted. See how beautifully he brings in the combination of holiness and enchantment. He's saying it's mesmerized, as ever beneath the waning moon was haunted by women wailing her demon lover. And he's saying the whole place was looking holy. At the same time, it was enchanting, it was mesmerizing us, because beneath the waning moon means reducing moon, there was a woman sitting, and she was crying and singing. She was singing a very sad song, longing for her demon lover. That is, her lover is an evil lover, and she is longing for him, and below that she is singing there. And since this is a savage place, we cannot expect any other human being there. So the only person or only element which could hear her song will be the waning moon, and she is sitting there and she is singing a song which is very sad. And then he says, and from this chasm with ceaseless thermal seething, as if this earth in fast thick pans were breathing. And he's saying this river is flowing in a deep, it has created a deep chasm. No, from there, ceaseless means without stopping. It looked as though the earth was panting. Panting means, like, suppose in case you are running in a race, you're running very fast, and after you complete your race you will take deep breath, isn't it? That only is pants. And so he's saying it is looking, that place itself, that river, when you see, it is as though the river is, the earth itself is in panting in fast thick pants, it was breathing. A mighty fountain momently was forced, because he's saying if the earth is going to breathe with fast thick pans, how the fountains will come out from the river, like that, in without any ceaselessly, without stopping, this river, in between the flow there were fountains, and these fountains were mighty, and it came out as though it is forced out of the earth when the earth was breathing so heavily, amid whose swift half intermitted burst huge fragments vaulted like rebounding hail. And along with this fountain came huge fragments vaulted. They are saying they were huge rocks which were vaulted, means when you throw them, it was as though these rocks were thrown from inside the earth out, half intermittent burst, huge fragments vaulted like a rebounding hail, or chaffy grain beneath the thresher's frail. It was like how, and they were thrown in all the direction, and how they were thrown is, suppose if you are removing the chaff from the grains, and when you're showing it in the air, the grains will fall down, but the chaff will fly in all the directions, no, like that. These huge rocks were flying, were being thrown in all the directions, and amid these dancing rocks at once and ever, it flung up momentarily the sacred river. And along with this, actually the river is flowing, in between their fountains, and these fountains are so violent, and along with the fountain, when water was being forced out of the earth, came huge rocks which were thrown in all the directions, but along with that the sacred river was just traveling in its path. This is how he is describing it. And then afterwards he goes to the next line. He says, 5 miles meandering with a mazy motion through wood and dale, the sacred river. And he says for 5 miles, meandering means it is going in a zigzag motion with a mazy motion, like it was just finding its way. Mazy means, you will know that when we are small, we would have played games where you will have a puzzle where you will enter in one place and come out in the other place, and you will have to find the correct route, like that only. It's a mazy motion. This river also was meandering, that is going in a zigzag motion through the woods, through the forest. This sacred river was running, and then it reached the cavernless, measureless to man. He is again mentioning it, that is, this river is passing through the caves which were not seen by any man so far, and sank in tumult to a lifeless ocean, and then and it went and joined a lifeless ocean. And then he goes to the next vision, where he says, and amid this tumult Kubla Khan heard from far ancestral voices professing war. So he is saying, among all these noises, that is the noise of the fountain where the water and the rocks were thrown out of the earth, and the noise from the caves which were being echoed, and at the same time the river joining the ocean, among all these noises, Kubla Khan was able to hear his ancestor's voice, which said that definitely there is going to be a war in the near future. And then he says, the shadow of the doom of pleasure floated midway on the waves. From here, Coleridge just cuts there and starts describing the palace. You should remember that this is a dream, and so we cannot expect any continuous flow of thought in a dream. He is just writing what he saw in his dream, what he composed in his dream. And now he says that the shadow of this doom was beautifully shown in the floated waves of the ocean. So he is saying the palace is almost close to the ocean, and so the shadow of this palace, so you can imagine what a tall palace it would have been, its shadow was floating in the waves. Where was heard the mingled measure from the fountain and the caves, and there also he says you can hear the mingled voices of all what comes from the fountain and the caves, and it was giving them a very different feeling. And then he says, It was a miracle of rare device, a sunny pleasure dome with caves of ice. And he's saying this sight is a very rare sight because the dome is shining hot, whereas the caves were ice. So this can never be seen anywhere because the dome is hot because it was shining with the reflection of the sunlight, whereas nearby it were the caves which were filled with ice. So in nature we cannot expect such a place, but in his dream he saw that. And then he goes on to another vision. He sees a damsel with a dulcimer in a vision once I saw. So he says earlier I have seen a vision, and he's writing about it where he saw a damsel, a lady with a dulcimer. Dulcimer is a musical instrument. It was an Abyssinian maid. He's saying, I know Abyssinia is a place in Europe, and he says she is an Abyssinian maid. And on her dulcimer she played singing of Mount Abora, and she was singing a song in her dulcimer, and that song was about Mount Abora. And he says, could I revive within me her symphony and song, to such a deep delight it would win me. He's saying only if I can sing the same song and bring the same symphony which she had, then I will be able to win around me that with music loud and long I would build the dome in air. He's saying if only I had the capacity to bring back that symphony and that song which that lady, that Abyssinian maid sang, I will be able to build a dome in the air. I will have the power to build the dome in the air, that sunny dome. He says the same dome which Kubla Khan had built for his palace, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there. And he'll say anyone who is hearing this song of the Abyssinian maid will be able to see this dome which I am going to build in the air, and also the caves of ice. And all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair, weave a circle round him thrice. And everyone will cry, he's saying, whoever seeing the dome which I have built out of my power, everyone will say, be careful, be careful, be careful of his flashing eyes, and be careful of his floating hair. And they will say, weave a circle round him thrice, and close your eyes with holy dread, and he on honey dew hath fed and drunk the milk of paradise. And they'll say, close your eyes with fear, because you will have to fear him, because he has drunk the honey dew and the milk of paradise. So Coleridge ends the poem here because as mentioned earlier, he forgot the poem which he composed in his dream, and he was not able to recollect it, and so he did not continue, and he left the poem as such. Until date, Kubla Khan is one of the best poems in English literature. I hope you've enjoyed the content which was said here. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.